So what this is the simplest bit of information to attract life force in a pyramidal fashion for our period. This is what I came to find is the most accurate. And what I noticed is that there's a pyramidal progression formula, and that if one were to project off of knowns into the unknown, we could map where we should be in a pyramidal form today. And so part of my experimentation with this was to see how it would affect plants. And so at that time I had used it so it hung like this. And it was quite different than this. It was more of a crude model. But the interesting thing about it is that I had a philodendron plant that had about 10-inch leaves, and it didn't produce anything more than that for the number of years that I had it. And once I hung the, say, modern pyramid over this plant, it grew one leaf from, not counting the stem, but from the actual ear, 28.5 inches in 8 hours. And since then it produced on average 31-inch leaves for the rest of its life. Basically, if we look at the, say, Mayan pyramids and what their common denominator is, and then look at Egyptian pyramids and what their common denominator is, and then look at the relationship between them, it's probable to, say, project backwards to find out what the Atlanteans were doing, and then forward to find out what we should have been doing. Instead of focusing on, say, Egyptian pyramids, we should focus on a pyramid more relevant to our time. Largely this is due to that the Earth is not static in space, but it's changing its location, and in doing so the frequency of space changes. As that happens, the nature of life force changes too. So one must keep up with the language that the life force would find relevant. And the crystals were simply used as an activator. The time that I was building these, I was able to distribute them over 80% of the world in 6 months' time. And the reason was all synchronistic events where people became aware that I was doing this and came and offered to bring them to certain places. And in doing so, I would map where they went, say like whether one went to New Zealand or here or there or Alaska or whatever. I would plot them all out on the map, and afterwards I realized that they were all forming what appeared to be ley lines because they were all in lines. There was nothing random about it. I used to be a normal guy, right? And so anyway, being normal and single and in a beach town, I go out on Friday night, and I had a nice beer bar that I like to go to, and I even had some sculpture hanging there and stuff. And so one night I met this guy, and he told me about pyramids. And he told me something else. He said that some scientist had transferred matter from one hermetically sealed bell jar to another with a crystal. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting, you know. And this guy was really into his stuff and wanted to talk about the king's chamber and this and that. And at the time I was doing a lot of stained glass. And so I went home that night and I made a pyramid for what I understood them to be. And I sat under it and it made me feel funny. So this is the first, say, paranormal experience that I'd had other than living with ghosts for a number of years. And so I was open to things being other than they appeared. But I explored this further to see if other people felt the phenomena as well. And they did, and so I thought, well, isn't that interesting? And I noticed certain characteristics about my first pyramidal form that it was very hard to sleep around. And so I recognized that the reason I couldn't sleep around it is because it was yellow. I used yellow glass. And then I had used copper foil and leaded it together, and so therefore, you know, it was certainly a conductive thing. But what I recognized as I started to explore this, I wanted to see, you know, how much more could I feel this weird energy if I changed the whatever it was about it that I could change. So the first thing, the obvious thing, was to change the color of the glass. And so in doing so, it changed the frequency of the pyramid. So I could make a pyramid that was really easy to sleep under, or any number of other things. And then because of the nature of my work, I came to recognize that it's a lot easier to, say, join glass together with, say, silicone than it is to do the lead glass. And so I started using the silicone, and even though the pyramidal structures now are getting fairly complex, certainly more beautiful, they didn't work as well for what they should have done. And therefore I recognized that osmotic capacity, or the ability for life force to pass through matter, was crucial. And so that's why what we have here today is a copper based pyramid, so that the life force can, one, see it, and two, osmotically traverse through it.